So, some people may or may not have had issues with my engine design. All right. I actually don't know what the hell that thing. I haven't gotten a. The Omega 1 is a garbage engine, by the way. They're like, it's like the Omega 1. And I'm like, it has hyper precisional problems that you have to literally replace entire internal parts to make it work and run properly. It's garbage. And not to mention, it breaks down very quickly. Okay, I'm eating pork chops today. I got fennel seed, thyme, rosemary, a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper. Small salt, much more pepper, but not that much. It's just a little bit across the surface area of the top and the beer. With avocado oil drenched over, flipped, and allowed to effectively, impregnate the meat. So, there you go. I got my meat. I got my pork chops. They are cooked to perfection. Fucking yeah. Alright, we're talking about the engine here. Alright? So, the Omega 1's garbage engine, it will break down so fast. It only has one singular actual power stroke. And it barely uses any of the energy from the combustion that is causing, and it causes so many other problems that it actually dies quite quickly. Just to let people know, the Omega 1 there's a reason why it's not getting anywhere. Okay? There's a reason why it's just not a very good engine design. Now, people have problems with the wrist pin, the sliding valve, and all these other things that I talked about for my engine. I'm sure, because it's like, well, the basic concept seems good. Why is it not? What's the problem? Or these are the problems I see. And you're telling me that my engine is garbage. Blah blah blah. I'm sure they're like this. All right, now, which by the way, did you see? This is how many I have to eat. Fucking. So many pork chops, pork loin chops. This is just ridiculous. Why am I doing this? Oh. All right. So a sliding valve, which is not difficult at all, is a T-junction. Okay. So an angular junction. So right angle. All right. You have that picture? That means that will slide, and then slide part on that ring can be slid, opening that center exhaust manifold out. Alright? Deal with the food in the mouth. If you want to listen, fuck off. By the way, the whole I'm angry and shit was a bit. It's just being a joke. And I'm pretty sure some people could see that, but I'm pretty sure I have to say that because either professionally offended people or people that are just very, very unable to know about that, which is a mental, thing. Anyways, the wrist pin is a wrist pin. It's a basic bitch wrist pin. The piston head is not your standard piston head, obviously. There's not going to be. There's no way that works. It just doesn't. You need a hollow piston head that allows for a cupping sealing, which, by the way, isn't impossible in the slightest to do. I have such problems with people. Do you remember that barbs go into tubes, and then you put an O-ring around that, and you put some pressure? You end up creating literally a seal. Anybody remember that? Well, I don't even need to do that if I have the same machining precision of the Omega 1, which, golly, that thing breaks down. Faster it goes, the less, tolerances become, the more fucking breakdown of the engine occurs. It's just a garbage engine. It's shit. Alright, now, this is so fucking goddamn good. Oh my god. I haven't eaten all day. You wouldn't understand why I'm like just. Alright, so let me see how best to explain this. So a cupping mechanism that's basically like this with a hole at the bottom, but it's not a hole at the bottom, okay, which wants to make it go up. But it's pushing down more on the top part, which happens to push that one down, and then you know about the scoop part. Pretty simple stuff. It's not hard. This is the tube area. That's the smaller tube area. Then you have your fucking connecting rod, which is connected with a wrist pin. As it slides, you get a hole that's always there on the outside with your wrist pin. It's extraordinarily easy to do. You don't even need to twist it on. You just put a tube through the tubes that has fucking holes in it. Okay? It's stupidly simple. Now, that angular piece is, of course, separated by, of course, these two pieces of metal here, which are insulative, not to mention, they are also lubricated ceramic. How are they lubricated? And the one in the center holds the key. My God, the key to it all, the one in the center. It's lubricated on both sides here. It's a bearing. Oh, with balls in it. Separating it from the sides. How did you not see that? How did you not see that? That's so easy to do. You're stupid for not knowing that. Honestly, I mean that. Like, normally that's a bit, but that's extraordinarily, like, if you know anything about engine design, how come you didn't see it? Huh? It's a bearing. It's literally a bearing. Seal. I don't understand how you couldn't see it. Intake is a cone. If you don't know what a cone does, it takes a spinning apparatus with a bunch of blades that are attached to it, with a bunch of other blades to shrink it down into the little area that is the circumferential area that is your tube. On the outside of the tube, it still happens to have a solid tube in the center side of the tube, strengthening its design massively. If you don't know, a solid, small little one thing with a outside and then an outside creates a strengthening rigidity factor. Then all you need to do is add in slighting, meaning a T. Okay, like that. So you have like this, it's just a slot in it, and it goes, and it has a curved part, slots in to that thing, and then the outside does it too, because it's thick, it still has depth. They're not fucking literally one fucking atom thick. How idiotic are you? Thus creating a seal easily, and they stick together easily. The piston head cap and then the central axle both act pretty well as a way to force them to stay together. Because, hey, what do you know? I'm resisting against the inside tube, not to mention I have this at the top that goes, you're going to all act together as one. So shut up about that. Fucking assholes. Alright. Granted, these are my own things. I'm sure people that are idiotic and don't know anything about engine design are the ones that are fucking saying some shit like this. Which is the problem I'm having. Because I'm having to explain this to basic bitch people that don't know anything about engineering or anything. And they're gonna get angry, like, it can't work. I'm like, this is not for you. This is not your audience. Shut up. Now, let me talk about this real fucking quick. Because it's like, it's not done. The wrist pin, it's like, why is it moving? You have a central point where it's connected. Okay? That's with the majority of it. But it's still able to rotate on the connection point. Even if it's that large, it's still a rotational piece. It's just a larger rotational piece. When you have air, when you have fuel, if you didn't know, that helps keep it cold. Much colder than the combustion, which basically means it's good to go, and you only need, again, a piece on either side, and then one that slots in, or you get the picture when it comes down to making sure there's a seal there, because that's an O-ring seal with two pieces, and then that it doesn't want to fucking go out, which it's not hard to create a fucking goddamn O-ring seal and still have it be lubricated. Yeah, easily. Which it doesn't even need technically to do, but sure, why the fuck not? Because to me, it's like O-ring means I've got some bearings, basic shit. I stick it with a curve over because, I'm able to press fit in a shroud that makes the lubricating bearing occur. So it's still wrist pins. And apparently, you don't understand how an O-ring works because that's an O-ring. It's an O-ring bearing seal. It's a resistive piece that creates a barrier between two fucking parts that are there attached. With pressure, that happens to make it unlikely to leak. It's an O-ring. But you're bearing, but it's an O-ring. It's a seal. Alright. Now, we're not done. Because we're aware that they're going to bend in, and they're going to push on that, but they're also going to push down onto the bottom. Far more forcefully, but it needs to open up to that. So during the moment of combustion, it's fully sealed, and then it opens up at the bottom, which is what you're looking for. Pushing the one on the bottom far faster, because if you don't know, path of least resistance for explosives means if you put a steel barrier here and a aluminum thin sheet of metal, it's going to push that aluminum far faster than it'll ever push the steel. And because it's rotating, it means it's very likely to continuously do that. Spark ignition isn't hard. Put a spark plug on one side, which is attached to the fucking little arm piece that it's attached to for your fucking And it's like, how is the piston head seal? And it's like, that's what I wanted to get to. That's the real part that I wanted to get to. Really, yeah, because other people is like, you addressed all these other concerns. I'm like, nah, I haven't gotten to the real meat and potatoes, the good stuff. I like the good stuff here. I like the good stuff. Alright? So those piston heads need to be hollow. They need to be allowing for things to open up and allow the air through. We know we have a sliding valve around the circumference, but we can't have a sliding valve right there at the center, right? And that you said that was a part of the center exhaust manifold. And it's like, yeah, no, that's a part there that is opening to allow for the air to go through in the tubes. It's like, how does that work? You have a solid piece here, and it's like, that doesn't mean anything to us. I can't imagine anything that you're saying. I'm like, I keep forgetting. People don't know anything about seals. It's attached. It's attached to the tube. Okay? That's a good way to put this. if you have a seal that happens to be stuck in place, all right, but you have something that needs to move around and it needs to have solid air go through, but it needs to make sure, that exhaust manifold, which is going to have to be close to these areas but not quite there, and it's helping itself basically go off to the engine housing and push twice your piston heads, while you have a wonderful seal that's going alongside in the center and has an angle to allow for the exhaust to go out, not just at the bottom but also at the sides. You need to also make sure that solid piece is allowed to rotate through and not disrupt the seal, which, sure, great, that side, no problem, but we need to also make sure both sides, mostly just the exhaust side, is able to do this, okay? Which is just another fucking, like, donut, toroidal, thing that happens to be sat inside of a lubricated housing area. Because you can still allow for the area in between to still be an exhaust manifold, even if it happens to have spinning tubes in it. But, of course, you need to insulate them, and truthfully, I don't want them to really be affecting, which is why you have double sides. It's not one full double donut, okay? You have to clamp them together to be able to make this work, which you don't need to clamp them the same way that people might expect, okay? Which means you have a majority and then a not so majority. That way it seals over, and there's a reason why I'm making this kind of a finger look, because it hooks in, and then I put my O-ring there, and then I bolt it together, and that's my gasket, so that way I don't happen to have a need for a flat-to-flat gasket, which always fails and sucks ass, and I don't want it to have to deal with my very high pressures, which this has to push against harder on the seal to go against and release the pressure air. And the hotter it gets, the more it expands and continually seals it harder. It makes no sense in any way to do it. What the hell, whatever engine manufacturer it is, they're doing it like. They fuck them. Fuck those stupid freaking heads trying to... Why don't they just have a freaking whole apparatus that goes in with a little barb and then an O-ring, and then they fucking seal it? That way it has to go down, over, up, over to fucking leak. What is this? Who designed this garbage? But then I'm like, oh, right, yeah. That's easier manufacturing, I guess, because they don't have, like, little, fucking tube hole things. Because it's just flat. You put a fucking gasket there, I guess it'll work. It's garbage, but, whatever. It's total fucking shit. They fail all the time. They're always a maintenance issue. Every fucking time. All the time on engines. But they're cheaper to manufacture, I guess. Whatever. Barely, if that. They're not even more complex. I hate them. I hate them so much. Anyways. And pushes up against the seal. What it allows for is that rotational area to be the exhaust manifold area. Okay. Which is a good thing. You want that. You need that. In fact, that's going to be your rotating angle piece. Right there. Which isn't very difficult. Again, it's two pieces, slides in, sticks in, you got your gasket, boom, you're done. I know, that fucking glare tells me everything. I couldn't imagine that before, and now that's so simple, and I hate the fact that you addressed my concerns. I'm not done. I never addressed the fucking piston head. I haven't addressed the piston heads. Okay? Which is an outside seal, which only really means it's only ever allowing for the exhaust to push up, get a little bit in between, underneath on the flat side. So take the curvature of the housing here. Exhaust went down, pushed on that rear bottom part, but it's just a mushroom kind of tip. Okay, what that means is it's flared out. It's bigger than the tube, and it is able to scoop onto that. But what that means is the next piston head that's right next to it happens to capture some of that above it, and then it seals it. Okay, so now it's up against the housing with those little seals, right next to it. But then the fact that it's traveling along what is essentially a ring that's on the outside next to your piston heads. Okay, now it works wonderfully well, but I hate that design, and I mean that. I do actually hate that design. Currently, my best way of getting around that design is literally to just not have anything there at all, because it's not necessary, until, let's put it this way, that design basically has a never-ending, on the engine housing, part that lines up next to their holes. So you got your little, curved holes, and then you have your inside little nozzle that's, while the fuel's around that, it then goes from a bigger cross-sectional area ring to a small little nozzle that's in the center. Okay, and then that can also, which is near the center really more than anything, because if I want a spark plug, my spark, electrode, and then a ground on the other side, which allows for a spark gap to pass the very small little distance, and it can be shortened or increased based upon, and in fact dynamically, because that's just a rod that you have to press with electricity coming through the center of the axle and then out, which, hey, guess what? A tube can still be an insulator, even with the gas. As a result, I can have a spark gap lengthened or shortened depending on the compression factors we're going for, which means the faster the RPM, the shorter the length of spark gap, and the greater degree of efficiency that we're going to get, because compression ignition starts to occur far more often. And so it's only open at the housing, but I can, because of that, move places where that opening that shuts the sides of the valves, and it's just a nozzle, which, if you don't know, a nozzle can literally be a bump like they used to do for boom, 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 guns on airplanes. Back in the day, they used to have a bump on the axle of the airplane, so that way they wouldn't shoot your propeller off. So they would have that to stop the gun from firing, and so they would continuously be able to dogfight without having shot off their propeller. That's the nozzle. It push rod, but it doesn't need to push rod. All I need for it to do, because I already have electricity running through this, is simply allow for the nozzle to open with a very fast valve, which, since it's swinging, I really technically only need to resist its continued motion to open it fast, because centrifugal forces mean it's wanting, and if I just slightly pull on it, it'll open up and then go right back to it. Pretty simple design philosophy. Easy to do. I know. It's like, it's not easy. It's very easy. It's extraordinarily simple. It's very easy to do. It's a literal electrical line embedded in the tube that happens to be insulated with, any ceramic or anything, because it's already coated in ceramic, because guess what? Along with the inside ceramic and the other, I don't want the damn fuel to fucking break down the metal, not to mention, hey, guess what? I get torsional forces because, pushing and pulling. Guess what? You can still have ceramic that happens to work with that. We already have ceramics that work with that. We have spring ceramics, but we don't necessarily need that, if I'm being honest. We only need rubber if we're being really real about that. Anyways, but point is, it then allows for it to open and close, which is just a solenoid, which will still work even if it's spinning around quickly. No, it won't. Then it's a hydraulic ram. I don't give a fuck. Stop it. Now, that's simplistic design engineering. I can use the housing to my advantage to basically be the seal for the air. It also happens to open up the chamber to a larger chamber and then close it, compressing it. Then I open up the chamber once more. As I do that, then I'm also allowing for more air during that stroke and cycle, and then I inject fuel at the point of combustion slightly before when it is sealed. And because I have extremely high pressures, I can do direct injection easily. That's why my engine design is better than every fucking one. Period. Omega 1 is garbage. And you know what? If you want me to get really fucking technical about this, I don't even need pistons. I'm not even kidding. I can literally make a fucking Whipple style engine, which if you don't know what a Whipple supercharger is, that's what that is. It's like basically two of these little fuckers that are going to go do this kind of a thing. And I can inject fuel around here on the curve. Okay. I can inject fuel like that. They've sealed themselves. They open up that way. It goes back to the bottom here. Now I have a basic ass bitch engine design, which is called the monkey hand design. That works even better and even more simplistically, because I can use the entire length and have multiple spark ignitions or compression ignitions, depending on how I want to do it. Intake on the ring side, and then it still injects air with literally another ring that's just a fuel ring that pressurizes itself as it spins. Injects it, I get ignition with spark or compression or both. And then I can just have it go off into the rear. Now, I wanted to talk about this really quickly because the piston one, I can use the piston as the compression. I can go into the ignition, and then I can go off to the exhaust to help spin it faster, just like a jet engine, on both sides to allow for a very high degree of efficiency. If I use the Whipple, I can do the same fucking design, which is called now the monkey hand Infinity engine. Fuck it. Monkey hand Infinity. We'll go with that. Fuck it. Whatever. I'm done. It's a monkey hand Infinity engine design. And I can still stick little, pie or whatever, to a central axle and use that to basically, like arms to a central axle to the ring, and then use that oncoming air to basically then be pressed up to the air intake. It's faster, it's more efficient, it's even better than their fucking Omega 1, whatever garbage engine they are. And it works more simplistically in all aspects. There. You happy? You fine? I did it. Boom. Deal with it. Fuck off. You annoy me, people that I believe would probably say this engine couldn't work. Fuck you.